I don't know if it's been 5 minutes, but I guess we can probably get started. Most of us are in here. Welcome everyone for Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee. We have our look at the Crosby Component C for the first draft of the institutional zones. Does staff have a presentation on this? Okay, all right. Fairly heavy document. Any questions of staff? Councillor Fernandez?
Yes, I have a few questions. I guess the first question is, why the two documents? Is one more updated than the other? Because I started looking at the appendix one, and then I went to my city council agenda one and found them pretty identical.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, they are identical. One's a color version, one is black and white.
Okay.
The reason we do a color version is because we're releasing drafts in stages or components. We always mark the newest stuff in color, so it helps the reader more easily identify what's new.
And that's kind of what I suspected, but I also figured with the paging, page numbers, it would be easier to refer to the questions, the page number that we had questions. So, to questions. On the council copy 1-53, under 4.3 bonusing, just a couple of questions related, or one question related to energy, water, waste management, transportation, renewable and conservation, which is on the next page. Am I to understand this is new initiatives in terms of bonusing if you fulfill these requirements that your zoning could be changed?
So through the chair, the bonusing provisions are regulations that we tabled as part of Component B, which was in May of this year.
Part of the, sorry?
Component B, which was in May,
yes.
so it was earlier
Right.
this year.
Right.
But yes, that's one of the eligible community benefit items that an increase in floor space ratio could be sought in exchange for.
Okay, so I just want to make sure. So if you fulfill any of these community benefits, you can reduce your floor space ratio.
Through the chair, just to clarify, you can possibly increase your floor space ratio.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Increase.
Provided that you satisfy the requirements in the regulations that are listed in 4.3A through H.
Okay. The other question I had was around driveway widths on 1-175. Driveway widths and lot line setbacks. Does this apply presently, or is this new consideration?
Through the chair, you're referring to table 5-1?
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Yes. So those are regulations that are in our existing zoning bylaw. And they are regulations that we will review once we start reviewing the residential zones.
Okay. Because this is really mainly for commercial.
Institutional, yeah.
Institutional, right?
Through the chair, the component that's before you today is specifically about institutional zones, yes.
Right. How far are we with, I know you've got a public consultation scheduled in December. Is that your first public consultation, or have you had some already in terms on 101s or?
Through the chair, with respect to this component that we're tabling today, what we're seeking from committee and then council is direction to consult with the public on component C. So on this component, we have done no public consultation. We're seeking your authorization to do that. The December 7th open house would be the first opportunity for public conversations.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a question relating to clarity on page 1-63, item 4.12, legal non-conforming uses. Can someone tell me what that means? I think I know what it means, but could you clarify for me section 4.12? does it mean if there's a legal non-conforming use, this would further protect that use?
Through the chair, the Planning Act provides that if a use or a building was constructed legally, meaning in compliance with a previous version of a zoning bylaw, it has legal status at that time. When we pass a new zoning bylaw, if the rules change and it is no longer complying with the new rules, it is given a status that's called legal non-conforming or legal non-complying. So its legality continues as long as that use in that building exists.
And that would continue even if it's a thoroughly disgusting use?
Through the chair, if it was built legally and the use was legal, then yes.
The reason I'm asking it, there are two properties along the Iron Horse Trail in my ward that are very detrimental to the Iron Horse Trail. Those are legal non-conforming uses. There's no way of changing that.
Through the chair, one way to change that is to examine the uses that would be considered legal in that area. So through the zoning bylaw, if we change the uses going forward, then it sends a signal that that existing use is something that at some point the city wishes for it to discontinue, but it is up to the property owner as to when the use discontinues.
Councillor Eddington, the properties you're referencing, are they institutional?
No.
Again, the focus of this is on the Crosby review and the draft on institutional zoning. So please, of course, I encourage you to talk to planning staff further to your concerns.
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Janetsky.
Yeah, thank you. Very detailed report, but I'm not surprised that going through the zoning analysis that you have to go through all this detail, and that's just part of the job. It's well done. Question I have in regard to the institutional zone on page 112 deals with the list of permitted uses, and I know we've got the institutional zones right now under current zoning bylaw, and a lot of the uses that are considered on this particular page are really public type uses, schools, hospitals, etc. And the other uses that you had previously are being eliminated, which some of them were residential uses, of course. The one use that really sort of puzzles me as to why it's in here seems to be more of a commercial operation is funeral homes. And I'm just wondering what the rationale was or is to include funeral homes under institutional use. I thought it'd be more commercial oriented. And is this the only, are they going to be included in institutional zone, or are they also included in other zones as well that they have not been eliminated?
Through the chair, specifically a funeral home is listed as a permitted use in the new official plan under the institutional land use designation, which is what is giving direction to this first draft. That's why it is permitted. Okay. That being said, yes, I would agree that it could also be a commercial land use. We haven't done the new commercial zones yet, but are actively working on them. My understanding at this time is that a funeral home would be contemplated as a permitted use in the commercial zones once we draft those up as well.
So are they right now under the current zoning bylaw allowed in other commercial uses as commercial zones? I can't recall.
Through the chair, I can look into that and get back to you. I'm not 100% sure. I believe they are permitted under commercial zones right now. Maybe not all 9 of them, but yeah, we can look.
And I understand. I appreciate the answer about the direction of the official plan, having the funeral home use included here. But I just didn't want to see if it was permitted currently in other zones being eliminated, being of a commercial nature, private nature, because from an institutional point of view, I don't know of any organization, municipal government, that deals with funeral homes. Thank you. I'll leave that for your response to come back to us.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair Singh. Just a question about group homes and or correctional group homes. It's in section 4.13 and 4.14. Just wondering when residential property zoned in a residential neighborhood is purchased by a proponent who wants to start a group home, do they have to apply to change the zoning into an institutional zone, or is it allowable within that zone without changing, without doing any public process?
Through the chair, it's my understanding that group homes are currently permitted in residential zones.
But then does that by de facto change the zone to an institutional zone of that property?
Through the chair, no, it does not.
Okay, so we are talking about institutional zoning today, and we have a section on group homes and correctional group homes. So can you help us understand the difference there then?
Through the chair, just some clarification, the difference between a correctional group home and a group home, or the difference?
No, the zoning of, how does the zoning change? So when we look at, a home's zoning, when it turns into a group home, it turns into institutional zoning, correct?
Through the chair, no, it's one of those uses that can be permitted in a variety of zones. So right now we're suggesting that it can be classified as an institutional use, therefore it should be permitted in institutional zones. When it comes time to review our residential zones, we will reevaluate the appropriateness of group homes as a use in residential zoning categories.
Okay, so this is one of those that crosses different categories. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Those are all the questions. Councilor Fernandez?
I'll move the report,
The
or the recommendation.
Yep. Good. The report has been moved. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.